When she reached the Pont du Mont Blanc, she picked up her pace. Daniel would be home from the gym soon. She wanted to arrive before him, get breakfast started, and lay out the dishes as part of a peace offering. She forgot who had once dispensed to her that newlywed advice, never go to bed angry at each other. But it rang loudly in her ears now. Then she was laughing to herself over it, because now, after 6 months, it felt like they were an old married couple. On reflection, the argument last night could have been avoided if only she'd held her tongue. Telling Daniel he'd had too much wine as she pulled him into the foyer to leave the Del Arches apartment, loudly enough to be overheard, wasn't politic, particularly since she'd had too much wine herself. They'd ridden home in a taxi in silence. This morning, Daniel had left for the gym without a word. Sasha figured a cheery hello and the table set for breakfast would put things back on an even keel. She walked up Rue du Mont Blanc and had entered Rue Ami Lévrier, hurrying now, when she noticed a man was walking behind her, seeming to match her pace. She slowed to let him pass. He slowed. She felt a bolt of alarm and slid her hand into her handbag, felt for the grip of her 9mm Beretta Cheetah. The American from the Bakers? She took a sharp breath, stopped, and turned. It was a portly man in a sweatsuit. He widened his eyes at her abrupt movement, then smiled and said, "Guten Morgen," averted his eyes, and walked past. Sasha could feel her pulse in her temples as she watched him turn the corner onto Rue des Alpes. She exhaled. She remembered Daniel's constant admonishments of her for being paranoid, or just careful. She continued down Rue Ami Lévrier, then opened the door to their apartment building. "Hello, Miss Sasha," Francois said from behind his security desk when she entered and crossed the lobby to the elevator. She checked her watch on the elevator, tapping her foot. Upstairs, she hurried, hoping to get breakfast well on its way before Daniel returned home. The ingredients for their goat cheese, sun-dried tomato, and caramelized onion omelets were all prepared and waiting when she heard Daniel enter. She brushed her hair back from her eyes, looking up at him as he crossed the dining room into the kitchen. His tan from their 2 weeks in St. Martin made him gleam like a sun god, warming her. "Sorry I got so pissed off," he said. "My fault, darling. I had too much wine," she smiled back. Her rising desire and hunger for him told her it wouldn't require breakfast for them to make up. She turned off the burner, reached out to Daniel as he took her in his arms and kissed her. A half-hour later, she cradled her head on her elbow in bed next to him, running a finger over his chest. "That was a better way to break the ice from last night than I'd planned." He leaned over and kissed her. "I wouldn't have complained about breakfast, but..." He grasped her hand. "I agree with you." He kissed her, then stood up. She watched him cross the bedroom to the bathroom. He'd hardened and slimmed his body over the last year. She felt a rise of desire for him again. She said, "Retirement's been good to you." He stopped and looked over his shoulder at her. "When I met you, you were lamenting your love handles and your 40s metabolism. Working out regularly agrees with you." He smiled and walked into the bathroom. She rolled onto her back as she heard him turn on the shower. Sasha sighed, content. This was her man. How could she ever imagine anyone else in her life? The next Saturday, Daniel left for the gym, Sasha on her rounds to her usual shops in Old Town, as had become their routine. When Sasha returned home and pulled on the door to their apartment building, she found it locked. She peered in and saw that Francois was away from his security desk. Probably a bathroom break? She fished out her keys, opened the door, and walked to the elevator. Upstairs, she noted that the light at the far end of the hall was out, and saw a light emerging from beneath the rear door to their apartment, where they'd created their master bedroom suite, by knocking out the walls to take over the other apartment on their floor. Is he home already? She opened the main door and called from the foyer into the bedroom. "Daniel?"